Welcome. This is exercise 2 for CAD 102. We're going to be creating isometric drawings inside of AutoCAD today. It's a multi-step process, 3 steps that we're looking at. The first step is we're going to create the line work in AutoCAD. Then we're going to shade the line work. Then we're going to hatch the line work and notate it. So for your assignment, what we're looking at here is basically, I'm going to draw this for you today. You're going to also have some other details to do yourselves. But basically we're going to take this two-dimensional image and create a isometric drawing. Now, I don't want you to get confused between drawing in isometric and 3D. And we'll explain that to you here in a second by looking at this example here. If I go into model space for this particular example, we can see how this has been drawn. It's basically lines that are going in our isometric directions, our 30, 60 degree angles. So this here is an isometric drawing. It is not a 3D object. If I go into 3D by holding down Shift and clicking my middle mouse button to orbit, you can see here that this is just a flat drawing. There's no depth to this at all. Okay. So I'll switch back to the top view. If I had drawn this in 3D, it would look like this when I orbit it. Okay, so this is that same object here, kind of looking at it as an isometric, if you will. But if I rotate around this, you can see I can look at it from any angle and rotate it. So this is that same detail in 3D, but that's not what we're going to do today. So I just want you to see the difference, that we're not actually drawing anything in 3D here. So I'm going to close this out, and we're going to start a brand new drawing. And AutoCAD, yes, continue. All right. So the first step in this process is to, first off, I'm going to shut off my grid. Secondly, I'm going to come down here to my object snaps and right-click on that and go into settings. And in the drafting settings for object snaps, we're going to come over here to this tab, Snap and Grid, and we're going to click on Isometric Snap and hit OK. When we do that, you'll notice that our crosshairs are now changed. They look a little bit different. And basically we have 3 planes to work in with isometrics. We have our top plane, our right plane, and our left plane. And the F5 key on your keyboard will toggle between these different ISO planes. If you look down here at my command line, you can see here I've toggled to isoplane right and left. And when I hit F5, you'll see here's isoplane top, isoplane right, and isoplane left. So what I'll draw for you first here is just a simple box. So I'm going to just draw a line, and we're going to click, and right now you can see we have our rubber band line, and it's kind of going at any angle that we want. And as you know, isometrics go at specific 30-degree angles. So I'm going to turn on down here ortho. It's imperative that you have ortho mode turned on. So this is my isoplane left. If I hit F5, this is my top isoplane. And if I hit F5 again, this is my isoplane right. So if I want to draw a perfect cube box, I'm going to just type in the distance of, say, 5 inches. And we'll go up 5 inches, and we'll come back 5 inches, and we'll go back down and close this off. Okay, so there's my right-hand side of my box. When I come in here with my line again, I'll snap to this side, hit F5, and toggle to my left side. This time I'll draw in 5 inches, come down 5 inches, and close this back off. And then I need to finish up the top, so I'll do a line from this end point, hit F5, and toggle the top plane. So this time I'm going 5 and coming back here and closing that off. So you can see here we have our perfect cube. It's a 5x5 cube. Next I want to put in some holes in this and put in some circles. So one thing to note, that you can't use circles, you have to use ellipses in here. As you guys know from manual drafting, in your drafting kits last semester you guys had the ellipse template for creating your circles. So it's the same thing in AutoCAD, only that you're using an ellipse instead of a circle. So if I were to put in a circle right now and wanted to put it in on the top, you can see that, you know, it just doesn't look right because it's not laying down on top of that like it should be. So I'm going to type in ellipse, E-L-L, okay, for ellipse. And notice on ellipse down here, we have ISO circle. So I'm going to click on ISO circle, and it's going to ask me now for the center of my ISO circle. The center of this ISO circle needs to be right here, dead center in the middle. So one thing that I could do here is just draw a line from here down. I can't really use my temporary tracking points. As you can see here, that will actually give me the circle where I want it. It's right in there. So sometimes your temporary tracking points will work correctly. Other times they may not. So you can try them first to see, you know, how they're going to work. But once I locate the center, I can draw this in, and you can see here how the circle now goes on top like that. If I want to, I could give this, make this actually a hole and give this some depth, because there would obviously be material here. This isn't a paper cube. It is a wooden or a metal cube or something like that, and it has a wall thickness. So we can't use offset when we're drawing in isometrics. It just doesn't work correctly. So instead we're going to use the copy command, and we'll click on this circle, and I'll click down here on the front and drag straight down. Notice I'm going to the right now, so I'm going to hit F5, so I'm dragging this down. I'm going to give the box a wall thickness of 1/2 inch, so I'm going to type in 0.5, and that will create this double circle, or double ellipse, excuse me. And I'll go ahead and trim this up, and now it appears as if there is a hole there. Okay, the only thing missing right now is the back line that comes down through here. You wouldn't see this bottom line because it would kind of come over and it would line up with that, so it's not going to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw this down like that, and now trim that up like that. So it gives the illusion of a cube now with a hole in the top. And I could do the same thing on the sides. So I'll go ahead and put in ellipse again, I for ISO circle, and this time I'll put a temporary tracking point there, one up there in the midpoint, and another one down here at that midpoint, maybe at that midpoint. Okay. Now notice here how the temporary tracking points aren't working, because up top our temporary tracking points go straight. They don't go at a weird angle like that. So so I can't actually find my center with temporary tracking points. So sometimes you may have to put in a line like that I can snap to that midpoint there, and I'll put one in on this side so I can snap to that midpoint. So I'll go into ellipse again, ISO circle, and this time I'm on the right plane here, so I can kind of put this in, and we'll make this nice and large like that. And I'll copy that and give that the same depth here as the top one, so we'll do a 1/2 inch. So as I'm moving back this way, okay, notice my circle's going up, so I'll have to hit the F5 so it's going in that correct direction. So I'll put in 0.5 and that corrects that. So I'll go ahead and trim up my outer circle here, my outer ellipse, and trim up my bottom line here. So we'll trim that side, trim that, trim that. So that's giving us that bottom line across the bottom there. And now I'll go ahead and do my ellipse iso circle for this side. Okay. Notice if you're on the wrong plane, okay, the circle's going to be drawn incorrectly. Okay, you can see that it doesn't look right. So make sure that I'm on the correct plane. This is my left side, isoplane left. So we'll do ellipse and iso circle again, and we'll put this last one in like this. Make this one a little smaller, and I'll use my copy command again. We'll pick that circle, click there, hit F5, and that's going to be 0.5 back, and we'll trim that off as well, and trim that off, and trim that off. So there's my simple 3D box. The other thing with isometrics is dimensioning. When we go into dimension these things, if I come up here to home, and we'll go to annotate and to dimension, okay. What do we have in here for dimensions? We have linear, aligned, and angular. So if we do linear, okay, if I come over here and pick from here to here, okay, you can see what we get. It's 2.5 inches because it's going like this. So we have to actually put an aligned dimension on this. So we'll do aligned, and this time we'll go from here to here, and you can see here it puts in the correct dimension, but it doesn't look necessarily correct, does it? So what I can do here is under dimensions, we have in here this oblique mode that will actually change your dimensions so that they're going at an obliquing angle for isometrics. So basically you pick that and come over here and pick this dimension, and now it's going to ask me for the obliquing angle, and it's either going to be 30, 60, 120, or 150 depending on what side you're on. So if I do in 30 and hit enter, nothing happened. So I'll go ahead and try that again. So we'll do oblique again. We'll pick this and put in an angle of 60, and we can see that that's incorrect. So let's try it again. We'll do one more here, and obliquing angle we'll do 120. Okay, it brings it back to that one. And let's try one more. 150. There we go. So 150 works in that case here, so you can see how that puts that out, and that's nice like that. So if I were to dimension this up, I'd have to do the same thing. So it's a little bit time consuming. It takes a little bit of extra effort to go in there and find the correct angle. But the dimension's correct, as you can see. It was 5 by 5 cube. So this time I used 30 on that one, and that worked fine. And lastly, we can put one up across the top here. And this one here, because it's vertical, we don't have to really do anything to it. We could have it going at an obliquing angle as well. I'll show you that here. So if we click on that, 150, you can see how that will put that out like that. All right. So that's basically isometrics in a nutshell. Now I'm going to go through this project with you guys and show you how to arrive at this from this. Okay, we have this as our what our engineer, architect, technician gave us to draw, and they wanted us to convert this into an isometric. So they want it to look like this. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is start a new drawing up here, and we'll do the same thing all over again, where I'll turn off my grid. I'm going to come down here to Object Snaps, right click and go into Settings. Under Object Snaps in here, we're going to go into Snap and Grid, turn on Isometric Snap, and we're all set to start drawing. So the first thing I'm going to do here is probably make my concrete block. So if you don't know what the size of a concrete block are, basically concrete blocks are 8 by 8 inches wide, 8 inches high, and 16 inches in length. Their actual nominal dimension is you basically subtract off 3/8 off of that. So you would have a concrete block that would be 15 5/8 by 7 5/8 high and 7 5/8 wide. So if you're going to put in your grout lines, which on this one here you see on the masonry block, we don't have grout lines, but on the brick we do. We actually should have grout lines on here to make this thing accurate. You can see the grout lines are up here, but that grout line is typically 3/8 of an inch. So, you know, that's basically the size. So we'll start off here with a line, and I'm going to start right here and make sure that ortho is on. And I'm drawing in this direction, so I'm going to go 16 inches. We'll go up 8 inches, back 16 inches, and close it out. All right. So there's the front part of my concrete block, and we'll go ahead and do the line work here. And I'm going to hit F5 and draw this across 8 inches, and F5. I want to go down 8 inches and close this off. All right. Now we'll go across the top, isoplane top right there, 16 inches, and come back and close that out. So what I have left here is the cavities inside here. So typically they're around 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, depending on the manufacturer of the block. So if we come up here and try to use the offset command, just so that you can see what will happen, I'm going to just use 1.5 inches as my offset. And so I'll pick this line and I'll offset this one and I'll offset this one. Okay? And you can see how when we offset this, it actually does offset the line. It copies it up and it kind of goes over. That's because this is going at an angle. So technically that is incorrect. So if we used copy instead, and I pick this line here and I'm going along this direction, if I say 1.5, okay, you can see it's in a different place altogether. Okay, there is that difference. Okay, so don't use offset when you're using isometrics. Use copy instead, and you want to copy along one of your axes in your isometric. Okay, so I'm copying in this direction now, 1.5. It's a little bit more time consuming, but that's the way it has to be done. So I'll go ahead and do that as well, 1.5. All right. The next thing is you know, if these actually had rounded corners, which they actually do, you wouldn't be able to fillet those. The fillets, some fillets may look correct and other fillets may look incorrect. Just to kind of illustrate that, we'll put a 1-inch fillet on here. So I'm going to set my radius to 1. And when I come in here and fillet this one doesn't look so bad. Okay, when I do this one, you can see that is kind of weird looking. And if I do that one, same thing. And this one's kind of weird looking. So obviously that doesn't work. So I'll undo back on that. So if I were going to actually round these corners, then I would actually have to use an ellipse isocircle. And to find the center of that isocircle, I would basically copy these over my inch from my radius. So I would use the copy command again, and going along this axis like this, I would go 1, and copying this one along this axis, I would go 1 as well. All right. So this point right here would be the center point for my ellipse. So we'll go into ellipse here, isocircle. This is our center point, and our isocircle radius is going to be 1. So there you go. There's our isocircle there. If I were going to put one in on this side, all right, I'd have to copy this line as well, over an inch. And again, I'd go into ellipse, isocircle, and we'll pick there, and this time it'll be 1 as well. Okay, so we have both of these in there, and when I go in, and we'll erase our construction lines here and trim these up. So we'll go ahead and trim that, and then trim these up like this. Okay. So you can see how this ellipse is a little bit different than this one, but it's correct as to how it's supposed to look. I'm not going to have you guys do the rounded corners on here because it is a little bit time consuming, and you know, we really don't need that level of detail on this right now. So we're just going to keep square corners in there. So I'll undo back like that. Now square fillet will work, and what I mean by square fillet is using a fillet with a radius of 0, so that way I can kind of clean these up. So if I click and click, I'll get a nice clean fillet. Of course you could do this with trim, but sometimes filleting these is actually a little bit more efficient and easier. Excuse me. So the last thing here is I'll put in the middle piece here, going across from midpoint to midpoint, and then using the copy command again, I'll go in this direction 3/4 of an inch, and we'll go in this direction 3/4 of an inch, and we'll erase that middle part and use our trim command, trim this up, and there's our concrete block. The only thing we're missing is these lines that go down like this. So F5, we'll bring that in there like that. And notice I stopped short because I can't really connect to this perpendicular or anything like that. So what I can do is use extend and just extend these down. So you'll find that you'll use extend to trim a lot, copy a lot. Very basic commands, but that gives us a concrete block. So what I'll do now is take this concrete block and make our wall. So when I look at my exercise here, you can see I just made this first concrete block. So I'm going to make copies of it across the top, and then I'll copy the face down here and down here. And I'll pause while I do that. I'm not going to have you watch me do every single thing here, so I'll pause and we'll come back in a second. Okay, so we're back here, and you can see here we have the concrete wall made. Made it based on this here. We have basically 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and 1, 2, 3.5 blocks across. So that's basically what I've done here. We got 3.5 blocks and 4 rows. So the next thing I want to do is put on this stone parapet on the top. This stone coping is what it's called here. We can see that it's 1 foot over to this peak and then 4 inches over that. So the total width of this is 16 inches. and it's 12 inches high to that peak. And you can see it's not necessarily drawn to scale if you look at that 4-inch dimension there versus that 4-inch dimension there. So we can see that it's off a little bit. In actuality, I think that's probably like a 2. I think that actually is supposed to be a 2, so it's probably 10 inches high. So let's go with that. And they don't give us the angle slope for this down on this side here, which I'm going to assume to be an inch as well. So what I would do over here is we're going to draw that in, and I'll start up here with the line command. And I think we started about, let's see, we'll come down here. We're at 1 3/4 of a block there, it looks like. So someplace in here is where I want to start drawing this by. So so I will use the line command, and we'll go into top mode here, and I'm going to snap to nearest right about here, and make sure that ortho is on again, and we'll come over here 16 inches that way. Whoops, I have a layer off there. Let me undo that again. Let's get back to layer 0. Okay, and I'll try that one more time. Nearest right here, and turn on ortho. F5, there we go. So 16 inches over, and F5 to go up. And like I said, I think we did it up 8 inches, and then it's coming back in 4 inches, and we're going back up 2 inches, and then that's going to close off. So that gives us that small slope there. So we came over 4 and up 2. Made that small little correction there. So I'll erase those two there, and we'll come over to this side and draw this one up. This one here will be 9 inches, and then it will connect up to this one. Okay, so that gives me the profile of the side of this stone coping. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole entire object here, from this end point here back to this end point here, and all we have to do is kind of connect up some of the lines and finish this up. So I'm going to click from there to there, line from there to there, and a line from here to here. Okay, don't need one across the back, and so now we'll have to do some trimming and erasing. So these lines are gone. All these lines inside here that we just drew, we don't really need them because the stone coping is sitting on top of those. So we'll erase all that stuff and take all this stuff out. It's starting to look great now, and we'll trim all this stuff up here. We'll erase that. Okay. Now, of course, this is going to have grout on it as well, so we could copy this up 3/8 of an inch and extend that out. Now I know that we just kind of changed the size of this thing a little bit, but that's okay. This again is an isometric, and it's more of a pictorial representation. So, you know, if you have the dimensions, use the dimensions correctly. Sometimes you just have to eyeball things and get them in there right. So anyway, so now we have our stone coping done. Next up would be our brick, and our bricks are nominal, just like a concrete block is nominal. Their basic shape for a brick is 8 by 4 by 4, so it's 4 inches thick, 4 inches wide, and 8 inches long. And then you would subtract off 3/8 of an inch for the grout. So, so you can draw them up that way as well. So basically, our bricks are coming off the back end of this corner. We have basically a 4-inch gap in here where we're going to have the rigid insulation and some airspace. So I would just go ahead and start drawing up my brick off of this corner, and I would just put in 8. Okay, come down. What's going to be 4? Okay, and back this way 8, and up and close that off. So that's the back end of the brick. The brick itself is going to be 4 inches along this way, and again it's going to come out 8 inches and close that up. Okay, so I shouldn't have probably drawn it that way, but here's our brick again, 4 inches, come up like that. Okay, so that's basically what our brick will end up looking like, and we'll have them come across here. And I'm not going to, again, bother drawing all that in front of you. I'll just show you the finished line work here in a second. So let me pause, and we'll come right back. So we're back, and we have all our line work done now. And again, all this line work that I put on here are just straight lines. There's nothing fancy on here, with the exception of this membrane that comes down here. I took ortho off and just kind of sketched that in. This will be the membrane that comes down across here. That line actually probably could be erased. Let's take that one out. So it looks more like that. That looks a little bit better. So we have this membrane that's coming down on top of this insulation, and then there's going to be some stone on here as well. This is some flashing. This membrane comes up underneath the flashing, and it goes behind this little mounting strip here, which has these washers on here and fasteners that are fastened to the block wall. Down here, again, you have the membrane that comes up and wraps around this other piece of insulation that's in here, as you can see on your drawing. So once you get all that done, and you can see my stone up here is a little bit different. I'm going to fix that. Hold on a second. Yeah, that looks better. So our coping is fixed. Now, the next thing that we need to do is go on and put in our hatch patterns on this. So the first thing we're going to do is put in our shading. And so I'm going to go into boundary hatch here for a second. And I personally don't like using this tool palette up here for my hatching. I much rather prefer clicking on this button right here, which will pull up the hatch and gradients dialog box. And it's a little bit easier working out of this right here. So first things first is we're going to set this to be a gradient. And I want my bricks to be kind of like in the illustration that I showed you, kind of going from red to white or gray or something like that. So I'm going to go in here and just change my color. Doesn't have to be red. I could use whatever color red that I wanted. And you can see it will gradiate out these colors. So I'll go in here and pick white or gray, something like that. And I'll pick this first one here. Now, one thing that you want to make sure that you have checked off is this create separate hatches. I want to show you what happens when you don't have that, because by default and up here you wouldn't see that. Also, you can put your hatching on a specific layer. I already have some layers created, but I'm going to use layer 0 for right now. So basically you can put them on whatever layer you want, and I'm going to go ahead and hit pick points. So when I come in here and put on my hatching, notice how the hatch pattern, the gradient is going from red all the way out here to gray. I want the individual bricks to have the hatch pattern on there. So when I hit enter, you can see here how it's going from red all the way to gray. And that might be the look that you're going for. In this case here, I'm not going for that look, so I'm going to erase those and try it again, and I'll show you up here. If you were using this hatching options up here, you could drop this down and say create separate hatches, and you also want to say send behind boundary. Okay, the boundary is the area, the bounding area of this. So what I want to do though is we're going to come in here back to gradient. Our gradient colors are still there. We want to create separate hatches. We want to send behind the boundary. We want it on layer, a specific layer. I'm going to keep mine on layer 0 for right now, and I'll go ahead and click on these like this, and you can see the same type of thing is happening here, where you're getting these hatches that are kind of spreading out. It'll look like this until you go and hit enter. So I'll go ahead and just pick the rest of these here, and it's a little bit time consuming, but that's the nature of the beast. So we'll go ahead and just kind of finish this up. Alright, and zoom up here. We've got one in there, and one in there. Okay, so when I hit enter, the magic will happen, and we'll have all individual hatch patterns like this. I just think it looks a little bit better. The only thing that's odd right now, and I may want to change that, is you can see how it's going from red to gray here, red to gray, red to gray, and then we have red to gray going this way. But I'd like the grays to be on this point. So what I'm going to do is highlight all these hatch patterns because they're all individual, and I'll pick those all, and I'll come up here and just change the angle to 180 degrees, and that will just flip those around. So now you can see how it's a little bit better. I like it that way. So I'll go ahead and put the shading on the rest of this. Okay, so we're back, and you can see I've finished up my shading. Got the shading in the grout and the insulation and all that sort of stuff. The next step to this is to actually go ahead and put on the hatch patterns. And I've already done that as well, but basically I'll go ahead and just put on layer 0 for a second just to show you that. If I use boundary hatch again, and we go in there this time, for instance, I'm going to come up here to my patterns, and oops. So we'll come in here to other predefined patterns here, and you can see in here we have all of our hatch patterns. So I'm going to use, like for instance, on the blocks here, AR sand, and the only thing that I have to make sure that I do here is I could still do create separate hatches. I don't really have to do that here because I can keep them all the same, but I think sometimes it's beneficial to have them be separate hatches, because when you do a surface here and a surface here and a surface here, you can change scales or rotations on hatches, so you'll see that here as well. But anyway, we'll go ahead and change this. Instead of sending behind the object, we want to bring it to the front. Okay, that means that the hatch pattern's on top of everything else. So this time when I go in here and do pick points, I'm going to go ahead and just pick my blocks like this. Okay, so something like that. All right, and we'll go in here and I want to make sure that we're on layer 0, and we'll hit preview. Okay, so we can see we have that nice hatch pattern on there now, and it's on top, and I can just hit enter and be done with it. So sometimes when you do the hatch pattern and you get out of the hatch pattern command, this sort of thing will happen, where the hatch pattern disappears. So you have to type in REGEN, which stands for regen. It'll regenerate the database, and by regenerating the database, it will go ahead and put those hatch patterns back in. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'll pause for a second. So occasionally you may run across a situation where you may need some additional hatch patterns. So you can see here I've put my hatch patterns on. We got our stone in here. Right here is our stone. Okay, we've put in some other hatch patterns in here, and so on and so forth. I'd like to put a hatch pattern on here for this wood. And one of the things that I can see going on here with this hatch pattern, notice that I don't see the line here. Okay, that again sometimes can happen. If I do a regen and nothing happens, then we need to change the way that this hatch pattern is display order is. So basically when I click on this and right click, I need to go in here to draw order, and I need to say send to back, and that will send that to the back, bringing that line in front. And so I'll do the same thing to this one and to this one, and we'll right click on there and go to draw order, send to back. So now I get my lines back through there again. Okay, so I want to put a custom hatch pattern on here, so I'm going to go out to the internet for a second, and we'll go into Chrome here. I'm going to type in AutoCAD hatch patterns. I'll get this first one, this CAD hatch place. They have a pretty good site here for free hatch patterns, and this will come up here in a second. I have a slow internet connection today, so yeah, there we go. So you can see we have some, custom hatch patterns in here. And we'll go for this wood one right here. I'll select wood hatch patterns, and I get a bunch of different hatch patterns in here. So I kind of like that one. I want to use that on that board. So I'm just going to click on that, and notice it just saved that. I might like this one too. And I like that plywood one. I could probably use that at some point as well. So anyway, go ahead and put these hatch patterns in. All right, and we'll come back into Windows here and go to Explorer. So we'll come down to the bottom here and come into this, and under downloads we should see our 3 hatch patterns that I just downloaded. So I'm going to take these, and we have to put them in a special place on our hard drive. So I'm going to highlight them and say copy. Now I'm going to go to my C drive and to program files. Under program files, we're going to go to Autodesk, AutoCAD 2014, and down at the bottom here we're going to find support. And I'm going to come over here to a blank area and right click and say paste, and that'll paste these in. It's telling me I need administrator permission to copy into this folder. I'll just say continue. It still should put them in. Okay, there they are right there. So now that I have those in here, to access them, we're going to go into boundary hatch again, and I'll come up to this window here, and I'll pull this down and go to custom, and under custom pattern right here, I'll click on this little button right here, and here's our 3 new custom patterns that we just brought in here. Okay, so I'm going to use that one right there, and I'll hit OK, and I'll do a pick points down in here like that. You can see it doesn't come in at a really good scale, so I'm going to just come up and reduce my scale until it is appealing to me. So we'll just reduce that down a little bit like that, and close hatch creation. So there you go. So to complete this exercise, basically the last things that we need to do here is to go in here and add our notes, our leaders, put it in paper space, and print it out and pass it in, and you should be all done. Thanks for paying attention.